Hi guys, Jeff Houston here again. I'm at Revolution Records with Max, the store manager. We're going to chat a little bit about the record store here and CDs they carry and a little bit of Max's background. What I like about this is tangible product in hand for listening to music and the clarity that comes with it that I just got educated by Max on. So let's chat with Max about this. So Max, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
So talk to us a little about the business here.
Well, we've been here for 8 years, and it's been a wild ride. It's been lots of fun. We've amassed a large number of, clientele that we like to think of more as friends. We've amassed probably the best selection of stock in the city, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
It's just been super fun, super rewarding, and a great place to be.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background, school and such.
I went to school for radio broadcasting, so that's what my background is in. Before that, I was in high school for musical theater, but I've always been very, very into music history and where music comes from and music itself, songwriting, everything about the context of a song. That's where the song's soul is.
Yeah, and you're definitely passionate about it, from what my understanding in our chats for sure.
Of course.
So what sells more? Records, CDs?
No, definitely records nowadays.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So the average records, what would you say biggest consumption for records are? What genre?
Like rock and pop and stuff like that. There are specific artists that tend to take off more than others.
Yeah.
Obviously Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey, Mac Miller, some of our most popular stuff, but also some of the older stuff, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, stuff like that. Fleetwood Mac, they're huge.
Yeah.
But also we tend to sell a lot of weirder stuff that you wouldn't always find in a record store. So we kind of excel in that we sell, a lot of hip hop that people are after, a lot of jazz, a lot of metal, a lot of punk. And so people like us. People keep coming back just based on our selection.
Very nice. And
Yeah.
where do you get your stock, your inventory from?
We get it from a few different distributors. There's still a lot of active pressing plants and whatnot, and still a lot of distributors who go out of their way to press stuff on record.
You don't do secondhand stuff here?
We do
Oh, you do
secondhand stuff as well. So we have, people who come in, or, people who call in and say, hey, I have a huge collection, and either they'll bring in the collection, or the boss, Scott, will go to their house and do a house call and whatnot.
Yeah.
If it's a huge collection, and then we clean up the records, price them, process them, and get them in the hands of their
Consumers,
owners.
Yeah, I love, we were chatting, and I used to always go to Cheapies growing up. Well, Rockin' Tees and Cheapies, that's where you'd find me most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And Scott, the current owner now, he used to work for them for what, 20 years?
Yeah, he was the manager at Cheapies for a good chunk of time. I think he was the manager for the 20 years that he was there. He was, and it was time for him to start his own path, and he started the store 8 years ago, and I've been here 7 years, and it's been good.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So Max and I were chatting, so we were talking about the differences in music and growing up. It's like a time machine going backwards. So what was one of your times? Was it a cassette? Was it a record? What was one of your favorite musics? Bring it back to your timeline.
Oh my gosh, I still remember listening to my cassette of Kermit Unpigged. It's like a Muppets cassette where they sing popular songs. It's got Kermit singing "She Drives Me Crazy" by the Flying Young Cannibals. I still remember listening to that in the car. I remember my first record that I listened to. I was 14, and I was a super huge Pink Floyd fan, but I went to a friend's house. My family, I didn't have a turntable growing up. My dad got rid of all his records before I was even born, but my friend had a copy of "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd and put it on, and it had never sounded warmer. I was a huge fan of that album to begin with, but yeah, every time I listen to it now, I hear something different in that album. There's something new that I hadn't heard before.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you listen to some music and it brings you back to a time in your life where you were. And I'd have to say mine we chatted about was I had a little Sportsman, the yellow cassette players, and I used to play Run DMC on that.
That's great. That's a specific like time, you know. I remember my yellow Walkman,
Yeah.
and I remember I wasn't listening to Run DMC, but I was.
Yeah.
That's such an uber specific time. It's like you can visualize yourself, and whenever you're listening to that from here on out, you are that person again.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely brings you back for sure.
It sure does.
But again, thanks a lot, Max, for
My
your time.
pleasure. Thanks so
And
much.
We're going to put a whole description underneath. And again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next.